Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's TX141 here with another Ace in a Day gameplay as always. Today we're bringing out the Ki-61 Mark 1A Hein. This is the original version of the Ki-61 series. Historically this plane was known for two major things: an unreliable engine and reasonable dive speed and maneuverability. Okay, so that was three things combined into two. The reason, from what I know, the Ki-61 was the successor to the Ki-43 plane, and while it was reasonably manoeuvrable and it was quite fast in a dive, it suffered from a number of engine problems which meant that it couldn't be put into service as quickly as intended. It was part of the Imperial Japanese armed air fleet. Additionally, the armament was considered anemic by most pilots when going up against American fighters, with only two 12.7mm machine guns mounted above the engine, or in the prop, however you say it, and two 7.7mm machine guns in the wings. I believe they're 7.7mm. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Okay, so now going away from history and into the game, arcade mode of course, the setup I'm using is as follows. Fully upgraded plane with 500m gun convergence, 30-minute fuel load. For the 12.7mm machine guns I'm using air target ammunition, and for the 7.7mm machine guns I'm using the universal ammunition. My play style with this plane and how the plane plays in general is as follows in my opinion. It's a reasonably manoeuvrable craft, especially if it's put between speeds of 250 km an hour to 400 km an hour. Once you start going over that speed, the handling characteristics seem to freeze up quite a bit and the plane loses quite a bit of control, or you lose quite a bit of control of the plane I should say. Below 250 km an hour this plane handles very slowly and unreliably, and as a result you'll probably lose in most slow period dogfights. This gameplay was taken on the Airfield Domination map Mozdok, one of my personal favourites in all honesty, and as I say that, my plan at the moment is to make my way over and help defend this P3, although I'm keeping my eye on our Blenheim, although I've noticed he or she's dropping down. So, our P3 is being chased by this Ki-45, and I decide to dive in behind the Ki-45. And as you see, as I go into the dive, I'm trying to make sure my speed doesn't exceed 500 km an hour too much. Because as soon as it does, as you see there, I'm having trouble keeping directly behind the Ki-45. Now while we only got the assist there because the P3's rear gunner took out both the left-hand engine and the pilot of that Ki-45, we provided assistance and a distraction, and that meant that the P3 had time, if he or she decided to control the gunner manually, in order to take down the Ki-45, and also we just caused the Ki-45 another problem. So I've noticed there's a number of enemy fighters all down below me, and some ground attackers such as this TBF Avenger, which are all just doing small patrols, and I decided to dive on the TBF. However, I didn't bother checking around me when I made this dive, and as a result you see I just took quite a bit of damage. Now I managed to get a critical hit on that TBF-1 Avenger, although this I-16 Type 18 Ishak is chasing after me. So I go for a dive, using what I historically know about the plane. And as I do that, the TBF Avenger decides to crash into the ground, awarding me with a kill. Well, he or she probably had no choice, but I like to put it that way anyway. Now as I run away from the I-16, I'm noticing that I'm just about making a little bit of distance on him or her, just very gradually. Although I'll probably bump into the edge of the map before I actually manage to get some good getaway distance. So I decide to turn and use my speed to my advantage, and with me, myself and that I-16 into a thatch weave. At which point I break out of it by trying to loop over, and at this point I was thinking to myself, well surely I should be able to outmaneuver that I-16 because I have personally flown it myself in arcade and I know it can't turn very well. However, the problem is, because of the damage I sustained from my initial dive, I've lost quite a bit of manoeuvrability to the plane. So, our turn rates are matching. Now, rather than continue to keep turning and make it a monotonous dogfight, at which point either one of my teammates or one of the enemy planes is going to come over and take one of us out, I decide to loop over and break into another thatch weave. Now my initial burst was quite poor, even though the I-16's got a very weak airframe, just showing how anemic the armament is. Although, keeping up with the thatch weave, I decide to do my best to keep behind the I-16 by pulling up on the stick a little bit, and I get off a good shot here. Taking off his or her tail completely, it was quite a tense dogfight in all honesty. The way I managed to take out the I-16 in the end was by simply using the slight vertical advantage this plane has compared to the I-16, i.e. the better control it has in the vertical plane, in order to manoeuvre myself into a position where I could utilise a thatch weave to pull off a killing shot. Now I typed in well played to that I-16 for the simple reason that is one of the best dogfights I've had in a little while, and with that we are now at 2 kills. So I go back into a gradual climb, noticing that the game's already quite a way through by the bars at the top of the screen, and realising that that dogfight did take a lot of time up. At this point I'm looking around thinking to myself, well, where are all the enemy planes? Are they coming over towards me? Which they're not, because my teammates decided to come over at the last minute to try and cover me, although I got the kill myself. And I'm noticing that the enemy team's mostly gathered around their own airfield, with a couple of quick sorties towards our airfield. Looking at the stat sheet, I'm noticing that the enemy team's made up primarily of low rank fighters at this point, and for this rank 5 aircraft in the Imperial Japanese Naval and Air Fleet, it's not a bad plane. Although, as I said, the armament is reasonably anemic, and you really do have to make the most of your manoeuvres at the speed range I mentioned earlier. Now I was thinking that this lag-free was going to try and climb and then try and take me out, so I decided to go into a quick climb myself, but I noticed the lag-free actually was going for our SB2M, and so I decided instead to just maintain my altitude, because that Beaufighter's also come over and the two of them are taking out our SB2M. With the Beaufighter making quite a sharp turn, I decided to dive and take him or her out. I managed to kill the pilot of the Beaufighter. I was trying to aim for the cockpit in all honesty, because I know that a burst on the whole sort of airframe of the Beaufighter is not going to be enough to put it down. Although coming out of my dive, this P-40 Kitty Hawk decided to climb up and take a few shots at me. Now I was quite shocked here that the P-40 Kitty Hawk couldn't finish me off in all honesty, so I thought he or she would have had a significant amount of energy, so I have to dive away as fast as possible. Opening fire on another Beaufighter, but it's not enough because I'm only hitting the airframe, or the wings, and so I just go for broke. Engaging that Buffalo head on, we didn't manage to kill him, however we managed to put a good few hits in, and with his rather anemic loadout of the 450 cals, which really required to be at gun convergence, we managed to do a little bit of damage to him or her, while they did a small bit of wing damage to us. As you can see, the dive speed of the Ki-61 has been used to full effect here. Well, I used it to full effect, sorry, and I decided to turn and go for this I-16 that's making its way over. I set him or her on fire with that very small burst, which I was quite shocked at, although I know I-16s are quite flammable. So that's our 4th kill. Checking behind me to make sure that I-16 hasn't got any control left in case he or she decides to move the plane over here and try and take me out. I'm noticing that there's a Buffalo and a lag-free behind me, although they're not primarily going for me, they're going for our Hurricane. With the damage this plane sustained, I decided to just keep on proceeding away and make my way back to the airfield, because this plane has lost most of its handling characteristics now, or the desirable ones at least. Now as I look behind myself, I know I can't land because we've got an enemy Spitfire Mark II-A chasing us. As you can see in the screen now, 1.2 kilometers away. The Spitfire is able to keep up with me, but to be fair, the Spitfire Mark II is a reasonably fast plane, so I decide to turn and engage him or her head on once more. Although I notice they've got one of our fighters after them, and as they're coming out their turn, I open fire. And here I'm noticing the Spitfire Mark II did not actually open fire on me, and I was quite shocked at this in all honesty. I thought I was a goner for sure, and I'm not sure why. The only two reasons I could think of would be A, that they were focusing on someone else entirely, or B, that their guns had jammed or run out of ammunition. However, I'm making the most of this, and I decide to take them out. With the plane bursting into flames, I then proceed to go after this lag-free, or at least harass it, with my ace already in the pocket. I managed to get a critical hit on that lag, taking out their tail control, so I know the lags are gone now, although two of my teammates decide to try and rip him or her to pieces. And I'm thinking at this point, well, they're either going to crash into each other or they're going to crash into me. So I'll follow the lag-free down at a distance. I take off his or her left wing, and I turn around to notice that we have an enemy plane, a Heinkel 112V5. I get the assist, one of my teammates takes out his or her pilot, And now I'm praying that I can go land, because this plane has seen better days, and I know that if I take 1 or 2 more hits, this plane's probably going to be going into the ground. To be honest, folks, I'd rather not put this gameplay down to just entirely skill and just my own ability. I'd say I had a large amount of luck just from going by what we've seen so far. And now noticing this Ki-43 coming over our airfield, taking out one of our ground units, and deciding to engage head on. Although he or she rams into one of our other planes, and I decide to dodge the wreck before it collides into my left wing. As I was saying, folks, well, some of the dogfights I get into in this match were rather in my favour, let's say. The whole engagement with the Spitfire Mark II-A, I should have been shot down, in all honesty, and as a result, I feel as though I was quite lucky to get away with that. Additionally, with the Buffalo that did engage me head on, while the Buffalo does have a rather anemic armament, even though it is 450 cals, if they're not at gun convergence, then they're not going to do much damage. And I was lucky that I managed to take a shot and then get out of his line of fire before his or her guns reach gun convergence. But enough about saying whether it was luck or skill. That's for you guys to decide in the comment section. I decided to put the plane to a dead climb and abuse the weapon as much as possible, just to see how quickly this plane can climb. And I'm noticing I made, I believe, 1,000 metres in the space of that single climb, which is quite amazing for a rank 5 plane. Of course, while I've got nothing to do but make my way over to the enemy airfield at A, I decide to play about with the plane a little bit and just gain some gradual altitude, noticing that the plane builds speed and altitude quite effectively and quickly. I'm sorry, but my voice is going. I need to have a sip of water from time to time. Now, looking down below at the airfield, I'm noticing the majority of the enemy fighters have clustered up, and as a result there will be none at high altitude or none really intending to engage myself. And with the damage this plane suffered, I decided to change tactics now, and instead of going for turn and burn style fighting, I decided to use this plane as an energy fighter, i.e. do a bit of boom and zoom. As I make my way down, I notice I've exceeded the speed limit I intend to use this plane at, but I just turn off the engine and I decide to open fire on this A6M2. I managed to get a critical hit, and that was enough to put that plane into the ground, so that's kill number 7. And now zooming away with most of those fighters having no energy or not enough energy to match my plane in a climb, I just pull away a little bit to 1,300 metre altitude and loop over. This time picking another target will be the Spitfire Mark I, I believe. Although I keep the engine on this time to gain a bit more speed so I can get out of there faster. I take out that Spitfire, and I was going to go for a shot on that P-40 Kitty-Hawk, but I decided against it because it was going to be a very tight shot and I might have crashed into the back of that plane. Also, I've overstayed my welcome with that Kitty-Hawk trying to shoot me down. So just flying away with my 8th kill, I decided to level out at 1,200 metres and let my teammates get stuck in there for a little bit, and I'm noticing an MC-202 flying towards our airfield or just towards the middle of the map. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I best intercept this pilot in case they decide to go for me when I make it back to our airfield. Noticing our P-40 Warhawk or Kitty-Hawk has decided to attack the MC-202, although I don't think they're able to actually keep up with the MC-202 at this point, or they're just not in the position to fire, because I don't see any fire going along, so I decided to engage as well. I get a critical hit on that MC-202, and that's enough to put them into the ground, although I decide to put a couple more bullets in to secure the kill. And that's the 9th kill. Now, I don't know why that Kitty-Hawk didn't open fire initially when he or she got behind the MC-202, well before I even dived down, but it might have been that their guns had jammed or they'd run out of ammunition. But anyway, we managed to get rid of the plane that was trying to meander into the centre of the map, and that's our 9th kill, as I said. So now looping over, I'm thinking to myself, well, this game is coming towards its end, the enemy team's got barely any fighters left. I could go for a landing at this point, but I might as well just keep cruising around and make sure the enemy team doesn't come over to our airfield and capture it. Because by the time I perform a landing, the game might be over, and I won't have to worry about getting the plane repaired. Sorry, will not have to worry about getting the plane repaired. My thought process comes to reality when our team uncaps the enemy airfield, and as a result the game's over. So, it's time to bring up the scoreboard. So looking at the scoreboard, with a ×2 on the experience, we managed to accrete 37,000 experience and 16,500 silver lions, which is quite a haul for this plane, especially at rank 5, and it's done the plane justice with 9 kills to our name and 2 assists. Although we did have quite a bit of luck, as I stated earlier in the video, this plane does show that the Ki-61 is absolutely lethal, despite its anemic armament and its rather unreliable maneuverability at high speed. Bringing up the team tally, again we can see all 9 kills confirmed, and on that note, that's been me today. I've been TX141. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder content on my channel. Until next time folks, take care and have fun in the virtual skies.